Namaskar, I'm Ashok Vyas, and today's show, as every show, is very special. But today it is even more special because it is International Women's Day, and we will be talking about the theme with which this year's Women's Day is being observed. And in general, we all are indebted to life, to the force of life which comes from our mothers. And in general, the celebration of life, the understanding of life, everything has its roots in women. Now, I will also recollect, as in India, we have often heard that the first teacher of a child is a mother. And I have the pleasure of welcoming Dr. Nisha Pillai ji to this conversation. Namaste. And we will also have the pleasure of welcoming Dr. Nalini Juthani ji. And with both of you, Nisha ji, you are not only a cardiologist, associate professor with Hofstra University, Northwell, you are also president of Women's Forum with the World Malayali Council. And Nalini ji, you have served as psychiatrist to, I don't know, thousands of patients, but you were also the first as a woman coming from our side of the world and taking many important responsibilities that included training. So let me begin with you, Nishaji, as you were growing up and when you dreamt of becoming a cardiologist. Being a woman, was there any additional challenge that you had to face?
Cardiology, to tell you the truth, when I came into training, was totally a man's world. There, 7% of the US cardiologists were women. So cardiology, even today, maybe like 25% is women. The rest, so that's a heavily man's world. Definitely, unspoken gender biases exist because nobody says women should not come into training, but the training as such is made, or the practice itself is made hard, or that is the way it is. So women kind of shy away from it on their own because the responsibilities or the expectations are higher. And to put the effort in when you build career is also the time when you have a small family, because I went into training 9 months pregnant. So you can imagine the challenges are huge. So you have a small baby, you have long hours at work, and to balance these two is the huge challenge that a lot of women face early in their career, because when career is starting, or when you have to put extra effort to get to where your colleagues are, that is also the time when you are needed a lot at home. So to balance the two is why women do not come into challenging areas of profession. And that is probably the biggest. And then the typical American concept of a cardiologist was the tall man, and to see a petite Indian woman with a nose ring and all that doesn't really conform to those understanding of what it is expected. But the way you work through that is by putting the extra effort in. I always felt like women do wonderful in most workplaces. She is committed, she is organized, she is responsible. So all those virtues of womanhood, if you can bring into your workplace, you really do well. It's just that you need to put that little bit extra to prove. And then it's all the same. So after that early thing, I don't think there is any difficulties afterwards.
So that early thing is very important. If that early thing breaks someone's spirit and they don't continue, then you don't have Dr. Nisha Pillai serving so many patients, taking care of their heart. And Nalini ji, do you see some parallel in what you heard from Nisha ji in terms of your own journey in your profession? And things might be different, but sometimes you need to compromise or so let us hear it from you.
So, first thing I want to tell you is I came to United States in 1970, 70. And it was a whole different world than what I see, especially with my children. The oldest is 50, and she's also a physician, but the life was very different. And in 1970s, it was amazing that American medical students I trained used to ask me, why did I wait until my husband finished his residency? And I said, because I wanted to give 100% to both my family and my career. And so I had a child first. It was by choice. And my we both were new in the country. We had nobody that we knew. And so there was a lot of adjustments and learning to be done. And I said, nothing will happen. I'm only 24 years old, and I will wait until my husband is finished and then I will start. So that's exactly how we did. And it turned out that when my residency began, my husband was an equal partner. I had to do some of the things which he had never done before. But when it came to child care, he was very, very helpful. And so, right from start, I started a in a residency program where there were only suited booted men, and within 4 years of my residency, my chairman said that we would like to make you a program director. And so my very first program directors meeting of the whole country, when I went there, I could not believe there was not a single woman, not a single woman, not even an American single woman. And so it was challenging, but it was a great deal of learning experience. It took about 4 years, after which I saw a first um African American man. He was also not there before. And so we became friends. We had something in common. And as life went on, I did a lot of firsts because to go, I became a full professor at Albert Einstein College of Medicine, and there were regular monthly meetings, and I was the only woman. At one point, the dean did ask why we did not have minority in our executive committee meeting. And people looked around and they said, we have Nalini. And I said, well, in that case, I'm a triple minority, not just one. I'm a foreign medical graduate, I'm a female, and I have brown skin. There was pin drop silence. So I think that I did not have difficulty in kind of not becoming cooperative or anything like that. But I think, like Nisha says, women have certain qualities that they are
Now,
born
yeah,
with.
let me take it from the point which you mentioned. Women have some quality, then nobody would disagree with that. So now when hear gender equality as a slogan, and it is being projected as the aspired state for the society for a sustainable tomorrow. Now, Nishaji, go to your experience of the days when, of course, you were in the middle of these people who didn't look like you, and even later on when you are in the operation room as a leader, the way you need to command, etc., does gender play some sort of a role which puts women in a disadvantageous position, Nishaji?
I totally believe that once you have come over that initial hump where you prove your worth, and they know that you can perform as well as they can, you get the due respect. I don't think initially you have to prove your worth, and we have seen this consistently in the studies that have been done and stuff. Women make better leaders. Just like we used to say, glass ceilings before. There is something called glass cliff also.
Why?
Anytime.
Yeah. Why do they make better leaders?
Yeah, because they play better teamwork. They are better to, they know how to keep the team together. They are a lot more understanding of the difficulties of their subordinates. They are a little bit more sensitive to the humanistic side of people, and they definitely can hold people together. And that's what they have seen. Like every time a company has gone down, it seemed like they could put a woman in leadership, and then it would emerge better. So this happens consistently in all leadership roles that women have taken, and that is because the virtues of womanhood. When we always talk about International Women's Day or whatever, we always say about celebrating women. We're not really celebrating women per se. We are really celebrating those virtues of womanhood, which if it comes in man as well, because the ability to adjust, the ability to accommodate, the ability to let go, the ability to put others before you, all those things comes naturally to women. And if men also acquire those
So
qualities.
let me interrupt you, and I think these points are very significant. Let me seek Naliniji's input on when we use the term gender equality. Is it putting women down in some way? Because what she says is women have all these qualities which men lack. So why bring women down if there are these special characteristics which are a part of a woman's personality? Um, so Nalini, your take on the need of
So,
gender equality?
so you see, we all came with different genes. So let's start scientifically. And as there are books written, men are from Mars and women are from Venus. We come differently. Secondly, everybody has different kinds of culture from where they grow up. In our culture, we all know that women's position were different, and so all women were not treated equally, and all men were not treated differently either. But most of the times, if you see all the studies that show that women were given more responsibility to take care of the household, to the family, to younger siblings, and so on and so forth, while men were given the responsibility to be how to become a good breadwinner. So I would not put the men down, but that was the culture in which we grew up. Now, some cultures did not give an opportunity to the women, while some cultures or some families did. And I would say that those successful women, and I've done this study myself in all different cultures. I had taken a sample of African American, Hispanic, and Indian, and Caucasian. And I found that the empowerment in the earlier phases of a woman's success was always a man. It was the father who allowed the woman to do certain things, while the mother was always afraid that if the woman did not carry out the traditional role, then she will suffer in her older life. Things are a little different now. Now, because we are not in the beginning stage of equality or no equality, now we are beginning to understand that in certain areas of life, women are in leadership positions. In certain areas, it's men. But if you put it together, there is equality. But some people may not agree with that. It is my experience that if a woman is capable, she can be recognized, but she will have to work 3 times harder. It will not be right away. And people of my age became used to that idea. The younger women now do not accept that. Why do we have to work 3 times harder? So now, even within our own culture, men are cooking, men are taking care of the babies.
Yeah,
It's a whole
yeah.
different story.
The way it is flowing, I think you are looking at the whole society, and we are in a state of flux as far as the dynamics at home and relationship between men and women is concerned, and especially at home front. And as you said that she's more understanding and empathy, I would also say is the word that comes to my mind, Nishaji, while you were describing the qualities of women. But then ego starts to come into play, as Nalini ji was mentioning. And I think that is what on home front is leading to a lot of separations, because men uh, or women also sometimes they have uh, the impressions of the previous role which was played by genders, as was very well explained by Nalini ji. So now this tug of war puts them apart. Do you see that the way I'm pointing it, and what is the way out? Because this gender equality, which as we are discussing for sustainable tomorrow, it is sometimes not not letting us sustain the present as far as family structure is concerned.
Yeah, we all come with our own cultural sensitivities, and I think across cultures, not just in an Indian household, the struggle is there. Because if the lady goes out and starts taking care of other responsibilities, then who is going to take care of everything at home? There are two ways to look at this. First of all, there is nothing like gender equality. A woman cannot stand in a man's shoes, and a man cannot stand in a woman's shoes. That's absolutely the case, and that's probably why traditionally we had this concept of gender complementarity, more like what Ardhanarishwara represents and things like that. Only when this left and right comes together in its own place, then we create better families and better societies, and maybe better individuals as well, like I said before. So it's not like, of course there is some overlap and we kind of help each other and everything, but traditionally what a mother can do, only a mother can do. And that understanding has always it is also part of being a female, to keep that in the back of your mind, or that you have certain responsibilities. And I always say this, whoever you are at work, you should be able to keep your crown outside when you walk into your house, because there you might want to just be the mother and the wife at home. Like Nalini ji said, we keep your profession in the back until your husband finished or your daughter was born, or things like that. Like I said, I did not put my family aside, because I trained, but at the same time I had my child as well. So there are compromises we do, and it takes a lot of effort. And instead of that, we cannot ask our husband to go and deliver the baby, right? So whatever compliment, whatever equality we talk about, there are certain things that only we can do, and we will have to continue doing that to maintain the society or the household the way it is. Otherwise things will fall apart. There is no, and I don't think we need to look down upon it or anything, uh, just because we do some extra household chores, or like I said, the crown and this giving orders and all those things matter when you're in a professional space. Those don't really matter when you're at home. At home, you're I think love comes above all other emotions at home. Ego and all those things don't really have much of a value if there is that commitment, and the responsibility takes a little bit bigger role right at home. And I would assume most women would understand it. The conflict usually happens when women are stable enough that they don't allow abuse. That is probably a change that has happened recently, and much more than it was in the past. Like Nalini ji was saying, woman was the taker of you take care of household, and a man becomes the breadwinner. But that role has really changed in the recent times, right? Everybody is a breadwinner. It's not that the man alone is a breadwinner. And when the woman becomes independent, then she's going to stand up and say, stop. But some no's become louder. uh, Before, it was very easy to silence her because there was a need of support from the other side. But now that need for support is not there, so respect is expected, equality is expected, or at least a level playing ground is expected. Yeah.
Yeah, talking about level playing ground, and looking at the achievements of women in the social, political, cultural field, there are plenty of women who have done exemplary, uh, call it work, or have excelled in fields which earlier were purely male domain. But since there is so much that we can talk on this subject, I'll go to slightly different lane. while we talk about cultural values, they are generally defined by how women behave, or the way we have the norms of having good character in the society. That also relates to the behavior pattern of women. On that front, also, Nalini ji, in the name or to celebrate freedom or sense of independence, uh, the track is changing, and I see some of the shows coming from India, and they're they're kind of shocking in the sense that it is very much imitation of what you might have seen in some American shows of this reality type shows, so Jerry Springer type guys. Now that is being uh, duplicated in India. And so, overall, your take on the value as we understand, the character as we define, and the changing role of women.
So the changing role of women is a process. It's not one fine day something happens. It has been happening, and in my experience of at least, I would say, 51 years in America, it has changed completely. I came from a family where the women were wearing only saris and the gungat. I was the first one in my family, married family, where I wore a sari. And the first time I went back to India, which was after 5 years of being in United States, I was wearing salwar kameez.
Okay.
And in 5 years, all of a sudden, I found that my best friends were all younger, children of my older babis. And they identified with me because they saw that Kaki or auntie is doing this, this is okay. And she is coming from America, so this is okay. Everything in America or the West, from Indian eye, was their kind of role models. That's how they wanted to be. That is why what we see on the TV right now is they're trying to be, they have now surpassed us. And to give you a very quick example, when I had my daughters get married and I went to India to buy the stuff, I found a kind of clothes that my children would not wear. And they told me, my friends of my age told me, but everybody wears the spaghetti strap. I said, what spaghetti strap? My children will not wear that in weddings. So the thing, so the thing is that India and the women in India went faster because they wanted to get there. So they had to speed up, and that's what is the outcome that we see right now. You had mentioned something about the ego, and I think we kind of lost it, and I want to catch that ego does not exist only in men, it does exist in women as well. But the more the men has seen that they can control, the more occasions they have to control, they will control. If you look at the women's studies of women who are abused, you will find that they are doctors, they are lawyers, they are of very highly accomplished women who are controlled by men and they are not able to do anything. So this is then at an individual level that you have to look at. We cannot
So,
look the studies on that.
absolutely. I think everything ultimately boils down to the individual level, because there will be different individual, and this prototype of gender. So there will be men of all kinds, women of all kinds. But looking at the limited time that we have, Nisha ji, what do you think should be sort of a one, two, three kind of things which you think men should learn from women?
Um, it's more like understanding, as the times change, right? They should also be aware of the changing needs of females, because now again we have defined women to be so and so culturally, and then you get married to a woman who doesn't necessarily want to conform into those gender definitions, and then a man doesn't need to feel anxious about it. It's a growing together, or experiencing the world in a different frame. And if we are comfortable making that change together, I think this will be so much more easier. And then what should a man learn from a woman? It's I think rather than a man learning from a woman, or a woman learning from a man, this is really like, what do we generate together to make a society that's a little different from what our parents lived. So it's not like we learn something else from the other person. I think every generation, as we move forward, it's a learning together process, because the world is really changing at a pace with the new technological advancements. And like you say, it's all boiling down to a global village. There is no India per se and US per se anymore. Everybody is celebrating the same thing the same way. So the way the world is shrinking down into a global village, and the way technology has been advancing at a pace faster than what the human intelligence can keep up with, we all need to grow differently now. The way we raise,
Yeah.
you know,
I think
we
sorry.
need to, yeah, we need to conform into a changing society with a different mindset, both men and women together. And at the same way, we're going to raise children a little differently. We're going to raise our boys, telling them like, tomorrow your wife is not going to behave like your mom behaved, right? And that's okay for our boys to learn that from home. Quite often all these issues happen because, oh, this is not the way my mom did it, and because my mom didn't do it that way, I would expect my wife to be this way. And that's not going to happen. It's just as it's. And then it's the other part of it is like, women need to be taught that the days where where you were taken care of by somebody else, or you were someone else's responsibility, is gone also. You're your own responsibility. So we need to raise daughters who don't need to be protected or taken care of, who are bold enough to stand on her feet, Atmanirbhar, as I would always say, self-sufficient and self-confident, to the point that she can serve her husband or her husband's family as well. We always ask in Indian context, when a man gets married, is he okay enough to take care of a family, or is he self-sufficient enough to provide for someone else? Why don't we ask the same question for our girls? Is she
So,
educated?
yeah.
Yeah. Is she educated enough? Is she earning enough to provide for her children and her household? So if we have women who don't need to really lean on another person to drain from that other person, I think that's what makes boys the most anxious. When he
I
sees,
think I think you made so many important points, and some of our viewers should listen to this conversation again and again, so that it trickles down in their behavior pattern. Nalini ji, we just have a minute to go, and your special advice for the upcoming generation, or rather, teenagers, teenage girls, or young women.
So, as I said, I have two daughters, and what I have advised them is what I would advise any young person growing up. Number one, both the son and daughter should have equal opportunity. That means if she wants to be a neurosurgeon, there is no reason to believe she cannot. She has to be taught that if you become a neurosurgeon, not like me, where I was told you still have to take care of your cooking, your cleaning, your children, your husband's family, and so on. I would teach that right from the beginning, when you are dating, this is the time to discuss, not after you are married.
Yeah, Nalini, looking at the paucity of time, I would just say that now we are entering into the phase where men should be prepared to work harder. I think that is the bottom line of gender equality. But I thank Dr. Nisha ji and Dr. Nalini ji, and I appreciate the presence of all of you for this conversation. And with lots of good wishes, this is Ashok Vyas.